All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a comprehensive overview of a truly monumental political blueprint. It's called the Progressive Liberty Party Master Platform, version 8. Whether you consider yourself a casual voter or a total policy wonk, this 13-category framework is just a massive exercise in structural reimagining. So let's jump right in and see exactly how it proposes to re-engineer modern governance. Right off the bat, the author's introductory essay really sets the stage. They point to what they identify as a systemic mass psychosis in modern society, calling out extreme polarization, institutional decay, and oligarchic capture. Their core argument? Basically, traditional political tweaking is dead. When the world is turned upside down, it requires an unprecedented, systemic course correction. So, what does that course correction actually look like? Well, it relies on exactly 203 individual policy planks. You heard that right, 203. We're not just talking about a handful of catchy campaign slogans here. It is an exhaustive architectural map designed to overhaul pretty much every conceivable facet of civic life, piece by piece. To help us navigate all of this, here is the agenda for our explainer today. We'll start with a systemic blueprint, move into the foundations of governance, tackle democratic and justice reforms, look at economic and social restructure, and finally, wrap up with a collaborative roadmap. Okay, part 1. A systemic blueprint, engineering a way out. The methodology here is honestly super unique. It completely sidesteps the usual culture wars and tribal identity politics. Instead, the author takes universal principles from personal recovery, think of the 12-step paradigm, and actually merges them with cold, hard systems engineering. The whole idea is to treat societal decay like a systemic disease that requires structural cures, not just a bunch of emotional rhetoric. All of these 203 planks are distributed across 13 distinct macro categories. But the real takeaway here is the specific order they are presented in. It starts with democratic reform and justice, and then eventually moves down to things like finance, infrastructure, and global order. It's a very deliberate progression. The authors are basically saying you absolutely have to fix the democratic plumbing before you can even think about remodeling the rest of the house. Moving right along to Section 2, Foundations of Governance, Redefining Authority. Here is where things get really radical. The blueprint introduces this concept called inverted sovereignty. It completely strips government officials of that inherent top-down authority we're also used to. In this model, you, the citizen, are the ultimate executive. The president? They are redefined strictly as an administrative service provider, literally the lowest servant on the ladder whose authority can be entirely revoked by the public at any time. And to actually keep those servants in check, the platform proposes something called the prudence mandate. Think of it as a strict anti-looting constraint. By capping government budgets at just a 12-month operational reserve, it forces any surplus capital right out of bureaucratic hands. Any extra money gets funneled directly into a national public bank to fund citizen-led infrastructure projects. Next up is Section 3, Democratic and Justice Reforms, Structural Inoculants. So if you want to break partisan duopolies and force accountability, how do you do it? Well, this document proposes some hard, structural mandates meant to completely crush the political elite's safety nets. We're talking about the Universal Participation Act, which mandates voting but adds a crucial none-of-the-above option. Pair that with top 5 ranked choice voting, publicly funded elections, staggered 18-year judicial term limits, and the absolute abolition of legislative immunity, meaning politicians would literally be held personally liable for the laws they pass. Which brings us to a massive paradigm shift in justice. They are proposing we completely replace traditional punitive policing with what they call service audit bureaus. The only job of these bureaus is to transparently audit the social contract through basic observation and documentation on an open public ledger. It completely strips law enforcement of violent punitive authority and qualified immunity. All right, on to Section 4, Economic and Social Restructure, Rebuilding the Commons. Let's dive into adaptive mutualism. This is the platform's idea for a dual-mode economy. It essentially keeps competitive market pricing for the stuff we want, those discretionary, non-essential goods where consumer choice is great. But it builds a massive brick wall to protect human survival needs. For things like healthcare and baseline housing, it demands cooperative, public universality. So a highly structured boundary between what we want and what we actually need to survive. And the sheer weight of the financial architecture they're proposing is pretty staggering. We're talking a hard statutory cap on individual wealth, combined with total financial transparency through a universal beneficial ownership registry.
That means the absolute end of corporate anonymity. It also pushes for aggressive Roosevelt-style antitrust divestitures and a Glass-Steagall 2.0 to completely separate commercial banking from investment banking.
On top of all that, it aggressively regulates the modern commons. Think ecological repair via a climate civilian core. For the tech sector, it classifies massive AI language models as public utilities and guarantees citizens the absolute right to raw mode, which is unfiltered cognitive access to your algorithmic feeds. Even in agriculture, it wants to shift massive federal subsidies entirely away from corn and soy, pointing them straight toward regenerative human nutrition. Finally, we reach Section 5, a collaborative roadmap, an open source party. The author really wants to hammer home that this platform is a living document. Out of those 203 planks, 133 are fully drafted, but roughly a third of them, 70 whole planks, are literally just left empty as placeholders. The author is openly acknowledging their own limitations here, purposefully leaving these blanks so they can be filled by the specialized, lived expertise of everyday citizens. So what's the ultimate takeaway from this explainer? It's the proposed method of action. Step 1. Bypass the tribal culture wars entirely by just acknowledging our systemic failures. Step 2. Draft concrete foundational policy inoculants. And Step 3. Collectively crowdsource the final construction of the party. It operates exactly like an open source software project, but applied directly to national governance. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Can a completely overhauled open source political blueprint actually reshape modern governance? Whether you look at the Progressive Liberty Party platform and see something impossibly idealistic, or you see exactly the kind of systemic shock our society needs right now, it undeniably challenges us to think so much bigger about the mechanics of our future. Thanks for exploring this massive document with us today.